Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. My friends, I need to share a disconcerting set of observations that I've been having with you today, and hopefully you can share your own insights and experiences in the comments section below, whether you agree or disagree. Now, I can tell you guys that I've been doing this for around 10 years, and I've seen the evolution of preparedness. I've seen it become more socially acceptable for one to call themselves a prepper, if you will. And we're seeing this evolution now where you have these very high net worth, highly socially influential, and high IQ individuals, very intelligent people, starting to move into the space with great intensity. And what do I mean by that? Well, I've been talking to people, guys, who they're not only prepping for, like a 3 day, they're not only putting together bug out bags, they're prepping for defending their communities. They're prepping for how they can endure a long-winded, gradual degradation of the social fabric. And these people are preparing to do what they have to do to defend their communities, to govern their communities, to arbitrate who gets what, okay, to ensure some continuity of government within their communities. And this is unsettling because never before have I seen so many people who I never thought would be of this ilk starting to really adopt this fatalistic perspective of the future. We talk all about the coalescing of conflict, contagion, and climate catastrophe on this channel and what it means for our current set of living arrangements on the planet and our current standard of living and our socioeconomic institutions. And, I've never before seen such an interest in the people who run society. Okay? I'm not just talking about bunkers now. Guys, I'm talking about people making plans for how they're going to protect their gated communities when it all goes down, how they're going to survive the purge. Okay? People are buying firearms who've never owned firearms. People are getting firearms licenses who've never owned or had any interest in firearms. People are making emergency response plans who've never had any. Okay? People are becoming more, for lack of better terms, black-pilled about the future. And this is very concerning because, of course, there's a self-fulfilling component to it all. Now, I have to ask myself at times, is this just the consequence of our own influence as preppers in trying to encourage people to become more prepared, or is this just a general zeitgeist towards, people's acknowledgement that the future is looking pretty foobar, and it's very likely, or more likely than not, 5149, that we're not going to be able to rectify a lot of these issues that we're having as a species, be they related to conflict, contagion, or climate. And as such, people are preparing for the long haul. I've had a certain set of conversations, and I'm not going to go into great detail lately, and indeed, this is my own confirmation bias. These are anecdotal data points. Don't take it as absolute fact, which is why I want you to share your own experiences about this. But I am seeing people who are, like I said, on the higher end of the high IQ spectrum. The higher end of the high IQ spectrum. That was a low IQ way of putting it. People who are very socially influential and financially well off, starting to look at how they can prepare for Mad Max. Okay? And like I say, I don't know if this is owed to our own efforts in the preparedness community of promoting emergency preparedness, or if it's just the result of these people coming to the inevitable conclusion that, there's a good chance, a better chance than not, that the whole house of cards is going to collapse soon. You see these PSAs coming out from various states, not only New York, but many states around the world. You see, these exercises being conducted by various countries, many of them, of course, motivated by the military situation between, Ukraine and Russia. You have bunkers being restored. You have this whole culture of duck and cover preparedness 2.0 emerging, unlike I've ever seen before. I even have YouTubers in the 1 million to 10 million sub range starting to contact me to do collaborations, and these are people who I never would have thought would have given this sort of audience the time of day in the past. Now you might say, well, they're trying to monkey branch, they're trying to, cross-pollinate audiences, and there's nothing wrong with that. In my personal opinion, it's great to have different audiences be exposed to different sets of ideas, and I'm totally open to collaboration with any channel, especially ones that are bigger than mine who want to network. What I will say, though, is that I think we've turned a corner with the preparedness thing. I think we are starting to see a real acceptance of how screwy things are going to get in the future. And that is very unsettling to me because when I say that people are preparing, guys, I'm not just talking about their own self-preservation. I'm talking about their continuity of their own communities, continuity of government on a small scale, because understand this: if and when any big disaster happens, the first thing the government is going to do is impose martial law. Now, the fact is they're not going to be able to enforce it, and because they're just not going to have the resources to do so. They're going to be stretched too thin. They can barely lock down one city, much less, hundreds of cities. So communities are going to be on their own. And the people with the most privilege in society, they acknowledge this. They know this. The people in the 1% are starting to realize that, we have to, the burden of preserving our wealth. I'm not talking about the 0.0001% who, have their own bunkers and will be flown by private helicopters or whatever to their bug out retreat locations. I'm talking about the 1% are starting to acknowledge that if it all goes to hell, the only way to preserve whatever privilege they've amassed through, sweat equity over the years is by taking control of their communities, by planning their own community defense, by making their own micro continuity of government plans, if you will. Okay, those gated communities that you see, we're entering a period where people who live within those communities are starting to say to themselves, how are we going to keep this if it all falls apart? And I can tell you that people are actively planning on how they're going to do that, focusing on every detail. Okay, I'm not going to get into the exact details, but how they're going to defend them, how they're going to distribute resources, how they're going to network and deal with people who are going to be problematic, be they elements within that community or elements from outside that community. Now, with continuity of government, the idea is that every government typically is going to have some sort of plan of action for how they can keep the peace if it all goes to hell. And there are a few key principles, okay, to keep in mind when it comes to continuity of government. One of the main things is to protect any government elements and ensure continuity of a recognized and duly constituted governmental authority. Okay, so by all capability and means, protect the king. The king, in our instance, unfortunately, is our prime minister, right? We must protect the heads of state because we still need that chain of command. And as much as you don't like the government, the fact of the matter is that we need some sort of order within society, and that's what continuity of government seeks to do. They're also going to have to be able to operate in a decentralized manner without communication. So this means that the municipalities, the regions, the districts, whatever, however you're delineated, is going to be granted their own emergency powers. And these are likely going to butt up against your own personal interests. And this is the problem, is that a lot of these townships, municipalities, villages, hamlets, whatever you want to call them, they don't have very detailed plans for how they're going to deal with these situations. And as such, the onus is likely going to be on individuals to police their communities. We're talking about community policing on a Mad Max purge like scale. So I guess the message that I'm getting or trying to give you in this video is that there are people who are, they're not tinfoil hat 3-4 a.m. 4chan surfing lunatics. Okay, these are people who are what I would consider some of the brightest minds in our society, who are taking preparedness to that level, looking at how they're going to preserve their community and as such preserve their wealth after it all goes down. Like I say, I don't know if this is just the consequence of all of our collective efforts as preppers over the years in terms of spreading the message of the importance of prepping, or if it's just a general zeitgeist towards this culture of self-preservation, duck and cover 2.0. I don't know what it is, but all I can tell you is that people who've never prepped before are starting to prep. People who've never owned firearms before are buying firearms for hopefully legal purposes. People who perhaps were preppers before are getting a lot more serious about it. And all of this could indicate the inevitability of everything we talk about on this channel. There's definitely a fatalistic component to all this, it would seem. Again, this is my own confirmation bias, but I can feel the anxiety and insecurity in the air. It's palpable with all people. And I want to know what you guys think about this in the comments section below. Am I out to lunch here? Is this, like I say, just confirmation bias? Am I just running into these people because, of course, I'm a prepper? I don't think it is. I think there's definitely a greater social approval for this sort of thing in light of the pandemic and the wars and all the things that have transpired in the last few years. It's given people license to explore this realm of things a lot more. But I'm really curious, though. Are you guys seeing the same thing? And what plan do you have for your community? Because I really do think we need to start thinking in communal terms, guys. I think that ultimately the lone wolf strategy is not going to work, because there's going to be these power vacuums that emerge. People who are highly influential within your community right now are likely going to be the people. They're likely going to be the government. If, the worst case scenario happens. Okay, and we're talking, what are we talking about? I mean, we're talking about war? Are we talking about EMP? Are we talking about just a collapse of the dollar and, descent into a long, deep, dark depression? Are we talking about things which are not man-made? Or just, a collapse of the food system? Whatever it is, how are you going to be a part of the governing body within your community? Is that something you want to be a part of? Because these continuity of government plans are not very thorough. And, it's going to be some guy who's never thought about it before, pulling out a binder that's going to give him all these authorities. And, he's going to be up against his own community. So let me know what you guys are planning and doing for, the worst case scenario. Is this something that a level that you've even thought of? Maybe you live in the city and this isn't a possibility. I'm curious to know. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. Canadian Prepper out.